Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the MetaStellar YouTube channel. My name is Maria KOROLOV. I'm the editor here at MetaStellar. And if you're looking for some free science fiction and fantasy books to get you through this weekend, we've got them. Today, we'll be reviewing the top 5 best-selling free sci-fi and fantasy books on Amazon. And the top book is about a private investigator going about her job, hunting cheating spouses, when the world is preparing for nuclear war. And there's going to be an EMP blast. But before we get to that one, we've got 4 other books, free books, to talk about. You see, every single Friday, our team here at MetaStellar reads the first few chapters of the books on the bestseller list. And I was helped out by several people, Alex Korolov, Kristen Noland, and Lilibet Dominguez-Torres. And they are part of our editorial team, all volunteers. I want to thank them very much for helping out. But unfortunately, none of them could make it here today for the taping, so it's just going to be me. But I've got some stuff to share. Okay, so MetaStellar mug, MetaStellar anthologies. Oops, there you go. Both of them are out. They're up on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the bookstores. And I also remembered to bring my little notepad up. I've already taken some notes in it. Yeah, you can see that. But it's got this grid paper, and there's options for that of the kind of paper you want to get. So that's in the description box down below. I'm also wearing a MetaStellar t-shirt underneath this thing, but it's kind of chilly for t-shirts today. Okay, let's get into the books. That's what you're here for. Okay, so book number 5 on today's list is The Daughter of the Ice by Luís Falcão de Magalhães. Sorry, Luís, for butchering your name. This is the first of 3 books in the Legends of Alicia epic fantasy series. The other books are between $1 and $5 each, and they're both in Kindle Unlimited. This is the author's first time on our list. So Kindle Unlimited is where you pay $12 a month and you read all the books you want. Great deal if you don't mind being part of the whole Amazon monopoly thing. But still, good deal. So epic fantasy is not my absolute favorite speculative genre. My favorite is space operas with strong female leads who don't let themselves get distracted by a pretty face. But epic fantasy is definitely near the top. When I was a teenager in high school, I once rocked a pair of fuzzy knee-high boots, and I thought it made me look like an adventurer, going on a quest. And instead, people just laughed at me. I also memorized the words to Far Over the Misty Mountains Cold and put them to my own melody, and I used to sing it to myself while waiting at the bus stop because I was a giant nerd. And all my friends were giant nerds too, so I fit right in. But anyway, this book begins with a map of a fantasy world. Excellent. Love the way it's starting. And the first character we meet is Ergar, a knight in his 50s who's seen his share of coups. He was part of a few of them. I like him already. And right in the opening scene, there's a new coup happening, and Edgar stops in to save the ruler of his country. There's a bloody sword battle, but the lead coup plotter is able to escape. Then we switch to 2 months later. We see the plotter. He's been forced to go into hiding in the remote reaches of the frozen plains, living on moss, rabbits, and foxes. But he's a follower of the Daughter of the Ice. He doesn't care if he freezes to death. Then, nearly at the point of death, he accidentally finds a cave system that leads to a woman frozen in ice, the Daughter of the Ice herself. And she's smiling a wicked smile through the ice. I love this beginning. I really love this beginning. And then the story really gets going. 13 months later, we meet Anna, a courtesan in bed with a magistrate. And I hate romance, but the scene ends perfectly with blood and gore. Excellent. No fuzzy, wishy-washy romance here for Anna. I like that. So I'm not going to give away who died and who killed who, because I'm thinking that if you're interested in this kind of thing, you're going to want to read the book. It reminds me a lot of the Game of Thrones. There's a lot of characters, and I haven't even talked about some of the other characters we're going to meet later on. There's a lot of stuff happening in different parts of the country. It's all interesting stuff. It's all interesting characters, lots of political maneuvering, but not so much backstory that you drown in information and, you know, all that stuff. I am having trouble keeping track of all the names, but there's really only about a handful, and that's on me. I have a bad memory for names. I think if I was watching this in a TV show, I'd have less of a problem because I'd be able to like put faces and characters to the people. But I think the average person would really not have this problem. I think that's just me. So I love this book. After I was done with this whole Free Friday thing, I went back to the book. I'm now a fifth of the way through it. Probably going to finish it tonight or tomorrow, although it's a long book, so maybe it'll take me a little longer through the weekend. It is a great read. I love it. I'm really getting involved in the story. We also meet a thief who steals a mysterious artifact and some mysterious letters and a mysterious map. And we meet some more adventurers, and we'll go back to that original warrior from the coup, and we go back to the point of view of the Ice Queen herself, and she turns out to be really, really evil. She's raising the dead. Super juicy. Love it. Everything I want in an epic fantasy, this book has. Excellent. Highly recommend. All right, next we go to another epic fantasy, The Legend of the Gatekeeper. It's a box set. You get the first 3 books in the 6-book Legend of the Gatekeeper epic fantasy series. The other books are $4 each, and they're not on Kindle Unlimited. So, on the one hand, it's also an epic fantasy. And there was also a strong female fighter in it, so I like that. And I might read this, but it didn't catch me as much as the previous book did. So here's a story. First of all, there's a long prologue that reads like an encyclopedia article about this country, geography, culture, history. It's really long. I skipped the whole thing. So then we get into a room that's full of grown men crying, curled up on the floor, laughing hysterically, praying to the deity of their choice. But one of the men isn't collapsing in fear. He's a warrior, he's calm, he's gathering himself for the battle ahead. Then we get a flashback back into the recent past. This is the event that brought him to this state. He was one of 50 trained mercenaries sent to attack an unsuspecting innocent village full of women and children and families. In the middle of the night, there's no resistance. The mercenaries just go through the village and are killing off entire families. And then a couple of the mercenaries pull a couple of kids into an alley, and they start torturing the boy. It's gruesome. This is a gruesome scene. If you don't like really gruesome sexually themed violence, you might want to skip the book, or at least like fast forward through the scene. Our main character comes across this, steps in to stop it. Meanwhile, the girl who was being held by these guys whips out a pair of knives and kills one of the attackers. And our protagonist tells her, you should run and get away while you have a chance. And she attacks him instead, then runs away. He's lying there unconscious when the other mercenaries find him, and as he's kind of fading away, he hears them call him a traitor and say that he's going to be sold into slavery, which is in fact what happens. He's tried for treason, and he's sentenced to fighting in this games, kind of like like gladiator style games, where you pretty much die for the amusement of the populace. And then we go back to that room where he's sitting with the other men who are freaking out, and one of the other men there notices him, and he's also like calm and together, and he looks like fitter and like more buff than everyone else there. And he asks our protagonist if they want to join forces, so maybe they can make it out of there alive. The other guy wants to get home to his family, and our guy wants to get his revenge. Meanwhile, there's the mystery of that girl. Why did she have these amazing fighting skills? Who is she? Why does this warrior keep thinking about her? So I like this beginning too. And I like his character. He seems like a nice guy. I like the idea of having to fight your way out of the games. And I like this book too. I like the previous one a little bit more, but if you like this kind of thing, I recommend this one as well. Next, we have The Oath by Jerri Hines, the first of 5 books in the Chronicles of the Ordained, another epic fantasy series. The other books are $3 to $5 each, but only the 4th one is in Kindle Unlimited, which is kind of weird. The 5th one isn't released yet. It's coming out in May, and you can pre-order it. Lilivette Dominguez Torres read this for us, and she says this is a high fantasy story full of magic, tension, secrets, and complex world building. And we meet Darius of the House of Sexton, and he's a kid who's been hidden from the king by his family because there's powerful magic running through his veins. And the house he grew up in, believes that elven blood runs through his veins, but his power keeps developing. And it's becoming pretty clear that he's more powerful than just your average elf. If anything, he may have Flandigana magic, which is a rare bloodline known to have unimaginable powers. So this house is hiding Darius from the king and protecting him from becoming bound to the crown because of his powers. But then the king's army marches to their front door, and everything's going to change. So the commander summons Darius and is asking him about his lineage and his powers, and the house realized that they weren't able to hide Darius after all. And Lilivette says this is a really tense and intriguing introduction to the story, to the world building, and to the characters. She says it's a bit of a heavy read for her, so she doesn't quite have the energy to do that right now. But if people like complex fantasy books with a complicated magic system and a lot of world building, they might enjoy it. I do like all those things. So now there's a 3rd book that I might check out over this coming week. All right, let's go on to the next one. This is The Witch Collector by Charissa Weeks, the first of 4 books in the Witch Walker, a romantic fantasy series. The other books are $1 to $6 each. The 4th book is not yet released and is scheduled for March, and you can pre-order it. So Kristen Noland read this for us, and she says that what happened, the main character is Raina, and 8 years ago, her sister was selected by the Witch Collector and taken to the Frost King. So Raina wants to get her revenge. She has somehow gotten her hands on a god-killing blade, and the Witch Collector is coming back to her village, and she wants to make sure that she's the one who's chosen, so she can go with him, rescue her sister, kill the king, and set her people free from the king's cold, hard rule. But she can't talk, so she's going to have trouble communicating once she gets outside her village. And Kristen says the story is very well paced, and it does a fantastic job building suspense. And the author is an expert storyteller who really knows the craft. And Kristen says it really pulled in all her senses, and she was solidly into the story. She found all the characters interesting and likable, including the protagonist and the antagonist. So she's curious to find out if Raina is going to be able to do what she wants to do. And she thinks that people who like these kind of fantasy books with maybe a touch of romance will really like this book. And before we go on to book number 1, I want to thank our Patreon members. Like I said, all the stories we've published are due to the donations that we get from our Patreon supporters. And all of us editorial staff are all volunteers. So all your money goes to pay for original fiction. And our next submission cycle is this March. So on March 1st, if you have science fiction stories lying around and you want to become a published sci-fi author, well, keep us in mind. The links are in the description box below. And if you want to support us, so in the future, you can submit a story and we can publish more of them. Please, please, please subscribe to our Patreon list or subscribe to our channel. We can see the 1,000 subscribers in sight, and that means that we can monetize this channel. And again, all the money will go to paying for original fiction. So if you want to support human writers doing speculative fiction and fantasy, please like and subscribe, or donate, or buy our stuff. Except I recommend not getting the mug with the black on the inside. See how there's black there? Because you can't see how much coffee or tea you have. They have a version that's white on the inside, and I'm gonna buy that one next. All right, let's go on to book number 1 on today's list. It is The Green Brook Homestead by Colton Lively, a standalone thriller of EMP survival. And the author has been on our list before several times. Alex KOROLOV read this book for us because he reads all our EMP books. So here's the story with EMP. EMP stands for electromagnetic pulse, and it's an explosion of some kind, or a solar flare, or a nuclear bomb that knocks out the electronics in a region. So your phone stops working, or the electronics in your car stop working, but people, plants, and non-electrical things continue just fine. Also, anything hardened against EMP threats is also fine. I cover cybersecurity at my day job, and a lot of our nation's critical infrastructure has already been hardened against EMP attacks, partly because of all the books like this one. So just keep that in mind. It's not as scary as this book makes it sound. But so there's a couple of different flavors of EMP books. There's the kind where a guy's phone dies and he goes, "Oh my God, there's been an EMP attack in my region. Therefore, the whole world is about to collapse into chaos. I have to kill everybody before they can kill me." And he goes into full-on psycho mode, and like, I have to save my family and this random woman who I just met, and kill everybody before they kill me. I was right to have stockpiled all the supplies. They laughed at me, but now they know I'm right. I mean, that stuff is like, it's super nuts, but a lot of people like it. There's a lot of EMP books that are on our bestseller list. This one is the other category of EMP books, which is more human, more believable, less over-the-top crazy dude kind of book. And they often start slower and are better paced, and focus on the emotional side of it and the personal side of such an attack. And this falls into the second category. So it begins with Judy, who's a private investigator in Florida, and she's spying on a cheating husband when she gets a phone call from her sister. Her sister's getting married. Then she calls her dad, or her dad calls her, and he tells her that there's a bunch of heavy artillery military vehicles moving around on the roads. And she goes online and she reads an article about how America and several other nations are moving around their nuclear arms. But she's not too worried about this. Then she goes, after she's done spying on this cheating husband, she goes home, and then she goes out to a horse farm to meet up with a friend of hers. They're out riding horses, and they notice that the weather's unusually cold, birds are moving strangely in the sky, and their horses are getting spooked easily. They go back to the barn. She hangs out with her friend a little longer, then heads home. On the way home, she goes past the grocery store, and she sees that a bunch of people are panic buying supplies. Everybody's panicking about the possibility of war, but she just goes to bed. The next day when she wakes up, her power's out. Her phone and computer are still working, but the internet's down. So she talks to her dad on the phone, and she says that she's going to go up to Ohio to check on him. She can't book a flight because the computers are down, but her car still works. So she packs up and she starts driving north to Ohio. So Alex says this is as far as he read, but he does plan to keep going. He likes to get a sense of the main character. He likes the slow build up. He says a lot of EMP stories start right out with a disaster, but the book takes its time and builds suspense. And he says it's a very good read. All right. So are you going to read any of these books? Let me know in the comments. And we also do other book reviews too. So if there's other stuff you want us to do, let me know. And I will see you all again next Friday. Bye-bye, everybody.